Hey kids, and welcome to Sonshiners. As you know, we're having to do things a little bit differently now. So instead of doing Sonshiners at church this week, you're going to be getting to do it at home because we have moved to doing all of our lessons online. It will be a bit different, but change can be exciting and we have so much fun learning to do about Jesus that I know you are going to have great fun doing this lesson with me. So let's start by thinking about what we did last week. If you were in our Sonshiners lesson last week, have a think about it, pause the video now and chat with mum and dad or your brother or sister about what we did. Okay, so last time we learned about worry. We learned that we don't need to worry because we can trust that God is going to look after us. Remember we read that story from Matthew 6 about the sparrows and the flowers of the field? How God looks after them and provides everything they need. Do you know God provides for our needs too? We don't need to worry. Well, in our Bibles today, we're going to be looking at Mark chapter 4 and Matthew chapter 8. Do you remember a few weeks ago we spoke about Jesus having power over sickness and death? Well, today we're going to learn that Jesus had power and has power over something else. He has power over nature. He has power over the waves as well. So, speaking of waves, I reckon it's about time that we get into a game. So what I'd like you to do now is pause the video and go and get a blue sheet or a blue towel. You also need a soft ball or a soft toy. See you back in a minute. Colour it is for this game. So I've asked Isaiah to step in and help me, so he's going to give me a hand. Isaiah, I need you to grab the other side of that towel. If you've got more people in your family that are playing this game or you've got a bigger sheet, that's okay. Just grab the corners or have a few people grab the corners and we're going to make some waves. So Isaiah, we're going to start by making just some little waves and I'm sure you can do this okay. Alright, so we're just making some little waves with our towel. Okay, when I say the word storm, Isaiah, we're going to shake this towel really hard and we're going to create a big storm. Are you ready? Okay, let's go with our waves. Whoa, he was a bit too eager. And storm! Hush, be still. Okay, did you see what we did then? When we said the words hush, be still, we had to pull the towel tight and make it nice and smooth. All right, so let's go with our waves again. Hush, be still. Storm. All right, that's pretty fun. You'll enjoy that anyway. But let's grab our ball or our soft toy and we're going to pop that in the middle. And our goal this time, Isaiah, is to see how high we can get that ball or that soft toy to go when we go into the storm. So let's put our ball on the towel and we've got our waves starting. Stop! All right, so hush, be still, I forgot. All right, great job, Isaiah. All right, that was lots of fun. But if you want to play something else, another game that you might like to play at your house is maybe a game of musical statues where you have some music playing, dance around the house. Mum or dad can yell out the word storm and you go a bit crazy, and when the music stops or when they yell, hush, be still, if you have a copy of the Jesus Storybook Bible, you can grab that out now and turn to page 236 as we're going to read the story, The Captain of the Storm. The sun was going down. The air was warm and still. Let's go across the lake, Jesus said to his friends. Jesus had been helping people all day and now he was tired. So they left the crowds at the shore and set out in a small fishing boat. Jesus climbed into the boat to take a nap. As soon as his head touched the pillow, he fell fast asleep. It was a beautiful evening. A gentle breeze rustled the sails. The friends were chatting happily as they headed out into the middle of the lake. Everything was perfect, just right for a nice, quiet sail. They were almost about halfway across when out of nowhere whirling winds swept across the lake, fierce and strong like a hurricane. A blinding flash of lightning lit up the sky. Thunder roared right overhead. The storm blew the water into towering waves that hurled the little boat up and up and up, then sent it hurtling, crashing back down, down, down. The fishing boat was blown and buffeted and tossed and turned back and forth and up and down and left and right and round and round. And in the middle of the storm, Jesus was sleeping. Now, Jesus' friends had been fishermen all their lives, but in all their years of fishing on this lake, they had never once seen a storm like this one. No matter how hard they struggled with their ropes and sails, they couldn't control their boat. This storm was too big for them. But the storm wasn't too big for Jesus. "Help!" they screamed. "Wake up, quick, Jesus!" Jesus opened his eyes. "Rescue us, save us," they shrieked. "Don't you care?" Of course Jesus cared, and this was the very reason he had come, to rescue them and to save them. Jesus stood up and spoke to the storm. "Hush," he said. That's all. And the strangest thing happened. The wind and the waves recognized Jesus' voice. They had heard it before, of course. It was the same voice that made them in the very beginning. They listened to Jesus and they did what he said. Immediately, the wind stopped. The water calmed down. It glittered innocently in the moonlight and lapped quietly against the side of the boat as if nothing had happened. The little boat bobbed gently up and down. There was a deep stillness and a great quiet all around. Then Jesus turned to his wind-torn friends. "Why were you scared?" he asked. "Did you forget who I am? Did you believe your fears instead of me?" Jesus' friends were quiet as the wind and the waves, and into their hearts came a different kind of storm. "What kind of man is this?" they asked themselves anxiously. "Even the winds and the waves obey him," they said, because they didn't understand. They didn't realize yet that Jesus was the Son of God. Jesus' friends had been so afraid they had only seen the big waves. They had forgotten that if Jesus was with them, then they had nothing to be afraid of, no matter how small their boat or how big the storm. Wow, isn't that story amazing? Jesus is able to calm a storm just by speaking. Well, we're going to learn a little bit more about this story now, and we want to understand it a little bit better. So to do that, we're going to do the same thing that we did in Sonshiners last week. We're going to retell the story, but we're going to use some actions. So I need to come up with some actions for different words. Let's see. I'm going to start with the word lake. So every time I say the word lake in this story, I would like you to do some actions. Let me think. How about a lake? It's usually only pretty calm, so let's just do this with our hands for the word lake. Okay, you got that? All right, the next word that I want you to know is disciples. So whenever you hear the word disciples, you're going to pop your hands on your hips, like one of the disciples. Another word in this story is the word boat. So when you hear the word boat, you're going to jump into your boat and make it with your hands just like that, and that will be the action for boat. So let's just revise what we've got so far. We have got lake, disciples, and boat. Okay, a few more. We're going to need some wind. So let's say that the wind is doing this. We often see the trees doing this in the wind. So let's do this with our arms for wind. Okay, and of course we know in this story the disciples were very afraid. So let's see something for the word afraid. We're going to go make the best afraid face that you can make. And the last one, of course, there was wind and waves. So the waves are going to be much bigger than what it looked like in the lake. So we're going to use our arms and we're going to go up and down like this for the waves. Okay? All right, let's check that we've got them all. So when I say the word lake, what are you going to do? That's right, you're going to use your hands like this, gently. When I say the word disciples, when I say the word waves, those big waves. When I say the word wind, and when you jump into your boat. And the last one was when the disciples were very afraid. Okay, great. I think we're ready to start. So I'm going to get out my Bible and I'm going to read this story to you from the Bible. All right, here we go. So, Jesus said, let's go across the lake. Okay, hold on a second. I think I need someone to help with this story because you might not remember all the actions. I mean, I know you're pretty clever, but you never know. So I'm going to ask Isaiah to come up again. Isaiah, I need you to do the actions because I've realised that with my hands on my Bible, I'm not going to be able to do the actions as well. So you're all good with that? Okay, you sure you can remember them?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, awesome. All right, here we go. So, ready for this story, Isaiah? Jesus said, let's go across the lake. So Jesus and his disciples set out across the lake in a small boat. Jesus was tired and so he fell asleep in the boat on the lake. They were only halfway across the lake when out of nowhere a storm arose. The wind blew the water into towering waves. Jesus was still sleeping in the boat. Yes, good. The disciples couldn't control the boat. The storm, the wind, and the waves were too big for them. They were afraid and screamed. No, you don't have to scream. Just kidding. Wake up, Jesus! Rescue us! Don't you care? Jesus stood up in the boat and said, hush, be still. And immediately the wind stopped. Good job. The waves calmed down. Whoop, the storm was gone and the lake and the boat were calm and still again. Jesus asked them, why are you afraid? The disciples were quiet and asked themselves, who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him. The end. All right, so in that story, the disciples asked a very good question. When Jesus calms the storm, they asked each other, who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him. So what is the answer to their question? That's right. Jesus is God. So he has the power over the wind and the waves. A few weeks ago, we discovered that Jesus has power over sickness and over death. And in today's story, we also discover that he has the power over nature. We're going to do our worksheets now. So Mum or Dad would have been able to print this worksheet off for you from our website. So grab that out and you'll need a pencil to be able to fill in some of the things on it. So the first question there on your worksheet says, why were the disciples afraid? Part A says, well, they thought the boat would sink. Part B says they didn't know who Jesus was or is. And part C says they had no faith. Which one do you think is correct? You know, if you're having trouble deciding, it's because all three of them are correct. They did think the boat would sink. They didn't know who Jesus was. And they didn't have much faith. All right, next question. Did the disciples need to be afraid? Yes or no? Well, that's a pretty easy one, right? No, they didn't need to be afraid. They were, but they didn't need to be. All right, the third question there says, what did the disciples need to do to stop being afraid? Is it A, to get better at guessing the weather, B, to understand who Jesus is, or C, to have faith in Jesus? I'll give you a second to have a think about it. All right, in this one, it's both B and C. They needed to understand who Jesus is and to have faith in him. You know, what the disciples didn't understand is that Jesus can do all the things that we can't do. He has the power over sickness, over death, over storms, over nature. We might feel like today that we're in a bit of a storm. Have you thought that when you watch the news and all the things going on? There's a lot of things going on in our world and we might be tempted to think that God isn't helping. But we can trust Jesus and we can have faith in him completely. There is nothing that we need to be afraid of because Jesus is always with everyone who trusts and believes in him. Just like Jesus was with the disciples in that boat, he is with us right now And if we have faith in him, he can help us to feel the calmness that he brought to that sea in Galilee. So my challenge for you today is for you to talk to God about anything you might be feeling afraid of and ask him to help you feel the calmness that only he can give. To know that he is going to be with you no matter what, that he loves you more than ever. All right, there is a wonderful verse at the bottom of your sheet today. And it says, it's from Matthew 19, verse 26. And it says, with man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. So that might be a verse that you can learn this week. Maybe you can write it out and stick it on the fridge or do something special with it. And maybe next week you can tell mum and dad the verse and show them how well you've remembered it. You can even send me an email telling me what you did to remember that verse. Another thing you can do this week, if you want to do something else today, maybe you're thinking, Mrs. Cross, we haven't done a craft, we usually do an activity. Well, if mum and dad print off the information on our website today, they'll see that there's some pictures of some craft that you could have a go at. There's a cool one using a pool noodle and putting a sail in and reminding us of all that Jesus did that day in the storm. So you might want to make that, or there's a picture there with some waves, you might want to make that. And you know what, if you do that this week, then send me an email, send me a picture of the craft that you make up, and next week we'll include that in our Sonshiners lesson so that everybody can have a look. If you would like to do one of the word searches or colour-ins that we've also put online today, then that would be awesome. Well, that's it from me, so I hope you have a great week. And I do look forward to learning more about Jesus with you next week. Before we go, one really important thing, let's talk to God in prayer. Let's bow our heads and pray together. Father God, we thank you that we've been able to spend this time doing Sonshiners together. Even though we might be far apart, we know that we can still learn about you. And we thank you for that. Thank you for the promise that you gave us today, or reminded us of today, that we don't need to be afraid because you are with us, that you love us and that you will never leave us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.